Tuesday, July 16th is right around the corner, which is the first day of early access when it comes to College Football 25. A game college football fans have been waiting for 11 years. Game which many of us dreamed about for over a decade. A game we never thought was coming. With the new game's arrival, many of us will finally be putting NCAA Football 14 to bed. Or so we hope. A game that survived and flourished, saw the start of many content creators' careers, and a game that grew up with me and brought together a community. I don't know if there will ever be a game like NCAA 14 again, especially in the sports community, so before the new game comes out, we should look back at the storied history of such an amazing game. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know the first team you plan to rebuild in College Football 25 in the comment section below. Lastly, I'm raising money for a charity run I'm participating in at the end of September. If you're interested in donating, I would greatly appreciate it, and the link is in the description below. It is the summer of 2013, and I am entering my freshman year of high school. It's the dog days of July, and I had recently started freshman football practice with my high school football team. It also was the first time I had ever pre-ordered a college football game. You see, I was never really a big video game player, nor was I the biggest college football video game player up until about 2012 when NCAA 13 had come out. I had played NCAA 07 and NCAA 2010, but I was more of a Madden player. But around 2012-2013, Madden was beginning its downward spiral, and I was learning to love college football more and more when compared to the NFL. I fell in love with NCAA 13 and had rebuilt the UMass Minutemen, leading them to multiple national titles and climbing the ranks of the MAC, Big East, and eventually SEC. So when NCAA Football 14 was announced, I could not have been more excited. I pre-ordered the game the first day I could and began to figure out who I was going to build up to be the next great dynasty. New teams in the game were going to be Georgia State, Old Dominion, and South Alabama. The game brought in a load of new features. The game was built on the Infinity Engine 2, and the objective was not to emulate the exact impact the engine had on Madden 13. It was instead to capitalize on the realism, real-time physics present, but with a college football twist. They added stumble recovery, choosing to move away from the old canned animations so you could take control and save yourself from going down with the tackle. They made running the ball feel more natural and realistic with new cuts and ball carrier moves, and it felt so much smoother than any other football game I had ever played. They also improved the option offense, adding 30 new option plays, and the option turned into the most fun offense to run, with Oregon's spread option being my favorite at the time. To better produce an authentic college football atmosphere, EA Sports added on-field player chatter, more fight songs, and signature chants from the ruckus college crowds. They also added game breaks throughout the game, and recruiting would be changed by giving players a set amount of points week in and week out, rather than having to individually call different players throughout the season. To add an RPG-like element to Dynasty mode, coach skills were added to the mix. Coaches would earn XP through their team's in-game performances from signing prospects and other responsibilities under the coach's umbrella. They also added coordinators who would jump to different jobs in the coaching carousel. Last but not least, the addition of Ultimate Team became a controversial one, though due to players' likeness not being allowed at the time, there were no current players in the game. Instead, EA had you go after former college legends like Peyton Manning, Randy Moss, and Barry Sanders. The game was released on July 5th for EA Season Ticket Early Release and was fully released on July 9th for the rest of us. The pre-order bonus was an Ultimate Team Pack for your favorite Power Conference, and I was so happy to load up the game for the first time. Something I learned recently, though, about this game was there was actually a controversy when it came to the cover athlete. Guys like Eddie Lacy, EJ Manuel, and Tyler Eifert all were viewed as possible cover athletes, but the final two players would end up being Denard Robinson from Michigan and Ryan Swope from Texas A&M. Denard Robinson left a complicated legacy at Michigan after starting for 3 years for the Wolverines. He was beloved as a person by fans, but would also play a roller coaster of a career. Heading into Michigan's bowl game in his final year, he had either set or tied at least 12 different Michigan records. He was an extremely athletic quarterback who could take it to the house as a runner on any given play. Under head coach Rich Rodriguez, many felt he could be the next version of Pat White. As a sophomore, Robinson set a single-season quarterback rushing record of 1,702 yards and finished 6th in the Heisman voting. Then Rodriguez and his staff were fired, and Michigan changed to a pro-style offense. The Wolverines went 11-2 and won the All-State Sugar Bowl with new head coach Brady Hoke's first season in Ann Arbor. Robinson had an iconic moment, leading another game-winning drive against Notre Dame in the first night game at Michigan Stadium. He finished his Michigan career throwing for 6,250 passing yards, 49 touchdowns and 39 interceptions, while also rushing for 4,495 yards and 42 touchdowns on the ground. He'd be drafted in the 5th round of the 2013 NFL Draft and moved to the running back position in the NFL. Ryan Swope, on the other hand, was a wide receiver from Texas A&M who broke Rod Bernstein's 24-year-old school record for receptions in a season as a sophomore. He broke his own record the following year with 89 receptions for 1,207 yards and 11 touchdowns. As a senior, he broke the career receptions record for Texas A&M, would be drafted in the 6th round of the 2013 NFL Draft by the Arizona Cardinals. Due to dealing with concussion issues, he would be forced to retire before ever playing it down in the NFL. EA would release a poll on Facebook to decide between the two players, which seemed simple at first. Then things got weird as Swope began to close a 14,000 vote gap in just a few days. Fans of players in the running of the cover began to create fake social media profiles to vote for their guy. A thread on Texas A&M forum, which was either deleted or set to private to members only, discussed ways to go about it. Many individuals posting to the NCAA Facebook page began pointing out fake profiles that had casted votes and criticized the process for allowing it to happen. EA would release a statement saying, "We are aware of voting irregularities around the NCAA Football 14 cover vote. We are in touch with the players and the schools involved in the final round of voting. In the spirit of integrity and fair play, are in agreement that only votes from legitimate accounts will be counted in the cover vote." The situation would be resolved and Denard Robinson would be named the cover athlete. It was a fun, wild story that was just so avoidable, but like EA likes to do, they were lazy with how they went about it. Robinson joined Charles Woodson and Desmond Howard as the third Wolverine to feature on the NCAA football cover. The game earned an average rating for a yearly football release, being given a 77 from Metacritic. GameSpot gave the game a 6 out of 10, praising the on-field action, but criticized the unnecessary experience system, the recruiting process, and the lack of significant changes for the NCAA Football 13. IGN, who gave the game a 7.4 out of 10, had similar comments, praising the fun running game and improvements to Dynasty mode, but criticized online servers, the dated visuals, and the generic feel to the game. I instantly fell in love with the football game the minute I began playing it. I went to Team Builder and created my freshman team where we ran the triple option like we did at the time, and I went right into Dynasty mode. I tried to go back and remember what my original Dynasty file was, but I deleted it at some point, unfortunately. I think I started off a Dynasty with Georgia State due to them playing in the Georgia Dome, but then proceeded to start a Dynasty with Old Dominion because they had better uniform options. I would eventually do a UMass Dynasty if I remember right. I played some Road to Glory, but not a lot, and just had fun making my own stories in Dynasty throughout. It truly was a special time. This game offered an online Dynasty for the first time, I believe, and me and my friends would start multiple ones just for bragging rights. I remember playing an insane online Dynasty with one of my high school teammates as the Memphis Tigers, and I wish I could have gotten access to how things look today. Every time we would end up playing each other, it would go down to the wire in a shootout fashion. The games would be so intense that sometimes he wouldn't even talk to me for a few days after. I played so many Dynasties, created my own stories, and when my teams became too dominant, I looked forward to NCAA 15, excited to see what was next for the series. The funny thing is, I don't think I opened up Ultimate Team until like the spring of 2014. As I began to get ready to pre-order NCAA 15, I would be crushed with some sad news. We would actually find out in September of 2013 that the NCAA football games would be canceling the football series. But I was not really paying attention at the time, and I was a freshman in high school. The game would be canceled due to a legal battle with the NCAA and student athletes over the use of their likeness in the game. Although players were not given names in the games, their stats and some of their faces were mirrored from the real players in the game. The biggest battle came when Ed O'Bannon, a former UCLA basketball star, led an antitrust class action lawsuit against the NCAA that named EA Sports and the Collegiate Licensing Company as co-defendants, arguing that the NCAA was wrongfully using athletes' images commercially, and the video game was a perfect example of this. O'Bannon was featured on the classic UCLA team as number 31 with identical measurements, handedness, and skin tone. They would end up settling out of court for between $40 and $60 million, giving former players multiple checks from a few hundred to a few $1,000s. Though this court case was costly, EA was still willing to go forward with the game and was willing to pay players for the name, image, and likeness. but at the time the NCAA refused to allow players to profit off their names. I mean, at the time athletes were being ruled ineligible for running their own YouTube channels, for God's sake. The NCAA made it virtually impossible to continue making the video game series without a possible lawsuit down the road again. So although the game was on an upward trajectory for sales, EA decided to stop producing the game. It was not until the summer of 2021 when that would all change, and the NCAA was forced to allow players to make money off their name, image, and likeness by the US government, or they risked losing their nonprofit status. All of a sudden, Wynn returned to the sales of all college football video game fans, as we hoped that this meant we may be getting a possible return of our beloved football series. During this time period though, I would still play the game, went through my own college football recruiting process, and dreamed about being in the game down the road. I went off to the University of Wisconsin as a student. I slowly moved away from playing video games overall due to how hectic my life had become. When I got to my freshman dorm, my friend Riley had brought his Xbox 360 with him and a copy of NCAA 14. We would update the rosters on the game and would have dorm room matchups from time to time, which got me reinvested into the game. Anytime I got home from college, I would dust off my Xbox 360 and go back to playing NCAA 14 myself. I updated the rosters every year and followed a bunch of creators for the game. I had a blast playing with Jonathan Taylor and got excited for the future superstar I hoped Graham Mertz would turn into. Spoiler, he would not at Wisconsin, and led the Badgers to multiple national titles during my breaks. It was truly amazing. While the game was not going to be returning, content creators kept the game alive. Channels like Flemlo Raps, Little Chef, Mr. Hurricane, and Not the Expert were channels I watched throughout the past decade. I first came across Flemlo's channel when he started his UTEP dynasty and brought them to relevancy while going off of the college version of Aaron Jones, who he referred to as A Jizzle before Aaron Jones went off in the NFL. He also had some amazing storytelling with his Road to Glories, creating different storylines for each player, previewing his ability as a storyteller and what his channel would later become. At the time I began following Flemlo, he had less than 1,000 subscribers and now is one of the biggest sports creators on the platform. Little Chef was a small creator I started watching who did multiple years and versions of a fun online dynasty, and he stopped creating content on his channel about 6 years ago. Maybe with the return of the new game, he will also return. He had created college football video game content since 2012 with NCAA 13. Mr. Hurricane would create dynasties with the Minnesota Golden Gophers and his own team builder in the Kalispell Warhawks. He would create storylines around the upcoming recruits, and it was a fun 255 video series. Not the Expert did a lot of similar content at the time for his UGF Pandas, which became so popular they actually made an FCS team in College Football 25 that I believe is inspired by the UGF Pandas. He also created the RCU Moonmen. Bordeaux started creating college football content 3 years ago, and I came across him when trying to download the new College Football Revamp. He has since exploded in popularity with different dynasties and college football imperialism videos. He is now being recruited by real-life colleges to be his first ever rebuild in the new game, which is so wild to me. These creators are not the only ones that continued making NCAA 14 content, but were some of the creators I watched back in the day and up till today to keep my love for the video games alive. They are some of the creators that kept the community together and pushed the College Football Revamp guys to do what they did. If it was not for some content creators, I don't know if this game lives on today. And that brings me to College Football Revamp. During COVID, I joined a Facebook group about NCAA Football 14, and remember there being this rumor about some guys putting together something that would revamp the game and almost make it a brand new game. I began to get excited as during the pandemic, NCAA Football 14 came back alive. For years, fans had kept the game alive by updating rosters and sharing said updates with other fans of the game. We were able to play with guys like Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Jonathan Taylor, even though there was no new game. One of the more popular roster developers was VikesFan059, who would work with others who visited Operation Sports' website to update the rosters and to keep the game alive while others in the world moved on. The rosters that group created were rosters I used back in the day. His editors followed a handful of rules according to the Bleacher Report from an article from a few years ago. Editors would claim teams they are interested in. Every new editor they brought in automatically gets their favorite team unless it was already a favorite team of another editor. Editors are free to claim any team not claimed by another editor, and editors who edited a team that year before were given the first choice on if they wanted to renew or drop their claim. Editors were not allowed to touch other teams they did not have a claim on without permission. VikesFan059 explained his process to Bleacher Report's Adam Kramer back in 2019, saying, Since the game only allowed 69 players per team, I then started cutting down my notes to get below the limit. I have to balance strict depth chart accuracy with roster balance. Once I had chosen the 69 players that make the cut, I then find information to set up the specific attributes, which included speed, acceleration, agility, and strength. The last step was to then adjust their overall rating. These editors did all this work for free while having families, full-time jobs, and lives outside NCAA Football 14, but they did it for the community. But the game was brought back to life around 2020 to 2021 when a group of college football fans got together and created College Football Revamp. Through their mod, they were able to update graphics, redesign uniforms, and add the college football playoffs, among other things, in a truly remarkable way. Cole Witten, a former UCF student and founder of Revamp, told USA Today back in 2021, "We're gonna serve as like an appetizer until we get the full game. That's why we started this whole project in the first place. That's why we've been pouring so many hours into it. We love this franchise, and to see it being revived, it's just awesome." When the stay-at-home orders were put into place in 2020, Cole and his brother talked about how much they loved the game and how outdated it was. So Cole decided to research how to make tweaks in video games like editing the jerseys, fields, and textures, and began the Revamp project. At first he focused on the power conferences, but over time the team has redone every team in the game and added the new teams that have made the jump from the FCS to FBS between games. Chad Walker, the project's lead contributor, told USA Today, "Something that we've always said about the project is it's built by the community for the community. I put so many hours into it, but I don't even think about all that. It's so much fun." Revamp became available on New Year's Day of 2021 and was given an update a few months later. They were shocked by the reception they had received. Walker said they went from 3,000 to 4,000 downloads to 25,000 downloads after the interface update. Throughout the pandemic, the game was being sold on eBay for upwards of $200, showing how beloved this game truly was, and I just counted down the days until I was able to purchase a computer powerful enough to download Revamp. Around the time Revamp launched, EA announced that the video game would be returning due to NIL, allowing them to do so. It was truly amazing, and College Football Revamped made it feel like we had a brand new game again, even before the real new game would come out. What is even more special is the fact that some of the Revamp guys were brought in by EA to work on the new game. What made the NCAA football games feel so special was the passion that went into the games, not just by fans and the players, but from the creators of the game as well. Guys who loved college football were working on the game, like Tom Vong, who started as a tester for NCAA Football 2000 at $7 an hour and rose up the ranks because he loved his Florida Gators. He told Bleacher Report a few years back, "I would have probably cleaned toilets if they had let me, just to get in the door to work on the game. That's the only thing I wanted to work on." When interviewing to work on the game, potential employees were asked about their favorite college football teams, and at corporate events were introduced along with their favorite teams as well. The offices were filled with developers donning college football jerseys every Friday. Dan Baker, who worked his way up from tester to producer, told Bleacher Report, "We went out of our way to hire people who were passionate about the game. We wanted engineers who cared about football, and I felt like that really showed in the product." NCAA football was not expected to match the sales of Madden, and it allowed them to be more of a testing ground, with Baker explaining, "They just kind of let us work under the radar. We got to try things and be a little more creative than they could because there were so many eyes from corporate on everything Madden did. It was a little lab to just try things out, which was awesome. Most of the stuff we tried, we really nailed." While Vlong said, "You could get scholarships and bowl games taken away. We even had our version of the death penalty, which would essentially take away everything from your program. I'm not sure if that would fly today, but back then, we were under the radar, and it was an awesome feature. The game was made by college football fans for college football fans, and it translated. Players like Jonathan Taylor and Tua Tagovailoa dreamed of playing as themselves in the game and hoped it would have returned before they left college. The NCAA 14 community is a special one and one I am proud to be a part of. I held onto my Xbox 360 and my copy of the game all these years because I truly love the game. I don't know how good College Football 25 is going to be honest with how high expectations are by fans right now. It may end up disappointing because after 11 years, college football fans are expecting so much. I plan to stream the game on this channel from time to time and can't wait to get my hands on the game next week. But I felt like it was very important to me to say an important goodbye to one of my favorite games of all time. NCAA Football 14 kept college football video games alive and brought so many people together. When I picked up my copy from GameStop in 2013, I could have never guessed how special it would become. Thank you to all who worked on NCAA 14, from the original development team to those who kept the game alive for us for free. Now it's time to rest, my friend. You have done your job, and you did it by going above and beyond. Farewell.